Umbrella Academy is one of the hottest new shows on Netflix. Knowing it has a hit on their hands, the streaming giant is really limiting the lives of Umbrella Academy actors. Netflix wants to suppress any and all scandals and ensure that Umbrella Academy becomes a lengthy franchise. Of course, this also means that the cast has to follow some bizarre and incredibly strict rules, like being constantly on brand social media savvy. If you want to work on a Netflix series, you have to make that job your top priority, and the cast of Umbrella Academy is no exception. Actors on the program aren't allowed to work on other gigs that could interrupt films or their promotional obligations. Basically, these actors have to structure their entire lives around Umbrella Academy's production and release schedule. Why would Netflix control their employees' lives so heavily, you might be asking? Well, the short answer is because of money. Well, Netflix is pretty tight-lipped about their production costs. We do know that a similar science fiction show, Sense8, cost about $9 million per episode. With Umbrella Academy's similar scope and even more intense sci-fi elements, the show sets Netflix back at least $10 million an episode. Of course, that's if production runs exactly according to plan. Any filming setbacks or production delays can quickly make a show dramatically more expensive. After all, delays mean that production crews have to be paid for working extra days, and more money goes to lodging and renting space when filming on location. Even a few extra days of filming can translate into hundreds of thousands of dollars in production costs. It's also important to keep in mind that an actor's job doesn't immediately stop once filming wraps up. They have to be on call for reshoots, attend events related to the project, and give interviews as a means to promote the film. Each of these late or post-production tasks are vitally important to ensuring that a show is as good as can be, and that it's properly advertised. While Netflix might be the king of streaming right now, the company is also about $12 billion in debt. So they need every single one of their original series to be a smash hit to justify production costs. That means locking actors into harsh contracts so that everything runs as smoothly as possible. From the outside, Netflix's policy of no schedule conflicts might seem a bit draconian. However, the performers on Umbrella Academy are being pretty well compensated. There's no way a movie star like Ellen Page would have accepted a leading TV role if she wasn't making a pretty penny off that project. So while this rule might be pretty intense, the gig's totally worth it. So, you know how you aren't really allowed to complain about your coworkers at your job? Or if you do, it has to be a behind closed doors kind of thing with people you trust so it doesn't spiral out into a whole office politics situation? Well, the same is true for the actors of Umbrella Academy, except that they have no bad-mouthing their co-stars written into their contracts, and face serious repercussions if they break that rule. There are a couple of reasons why Netflix would include this policy in their actors' contracts. One of the big reasons is that any public drama could draw the wrong kind of attention to Umbrella Academy. Netflix wants the conversation around Umbrella Academy to center on how interesting the project is, and how it's unlike other superhero stories. Controlling the conversation around the show lets Netflix market it much more effectively and ultimately results in them making more money. However, if the conversation shifts to how an actor had a bad time on set or two performers didn't get along, Netflix immediately has to start damage control. This draws attention away from Umbrella Academy and makes more people interested in the drama surrounding the show. Additionally, Netflix really doesn't want to deal with actors who have clashing personalities. Every workspace has people that just don't get along, and are only polite to each other because they have to be. Actors, though, sometimes have to work very closely with people they dislike, and their job requires them to be more emotionally vulnerable. This makes it way easier to get on somebody's bad side, and criticizing someone behind their back fast-tracks that process pretty quick. Actors not being able to easily work together can lead to production delays, a lot of needless stress, and a worse show overall. Since Netflix can't force actors to be friends, they do the next best thing and forbid their employees from bad-mouthing anyone. Are there some unsavory ethical implications in limiting what an actor can say when they're not working? Yes, but Netflix doesn't care about that so long as actors do their job well and produce those money-making shows like Umbrella Academy. Speaking of what actors are and are not allowed to say, the performers of Umbrella Academy have to stick to specific talking points during interviews. No matter how candid or casual a show tries to make these interviews seem, these actors are still on the clock and giving workshopped responses. which goes in line with how much of a vice grip Netflix has on the lives of their performers. Although they do get something out of it too. Both Netflix and the actors performing in Umbrella Academy have a vested interest in the show performing well. If it's a hit, Netflix makes a whole bunch of money, and performers can get better roles and have higher rates. Everybody wins, and that is why both groups want to talk about the show in a way that benefits them. Usually that involves some coaching from Netflix. It's super common for outlets like Netflix to instruct their performers on how to best behave in public and how to talk about their show. Of course, performers are usually eager to go along with this, since their job is at risk if they step out of line. However, this does lead to a kind of problematic standard that is not good for the entertainment industry and the people working in it. If speaking out about issues on a set or with certain coworkers is forbidden or even just frowned upon, a lot of problems can fester. Mismanagement, people acting inappropriately, and poor communication can all turn into massive problems if actors aren't allowed to speak out. Ironically, in Netflix's efforts to improve a project, they're creating an environment that can lead to a production nightmare. Granted, there should be rules in place to prevent actors from just trash-talking a show. Their experience could have been vastly different from everybody else involved, and sometimes misunderstandings can be blown out of proportion. However, actors should still be able to raise their issues with their workplace publicly and privately without fear of major repercussions. The simple matter of fact is that these problems will never improve across the industry until actors are allowed to talk about them. Netflix absolutely does not want the actors on Umbrella Academy to express too many controversial opinions. Doing so could draw attention away from the show, or perhaps even worse, bring a lot of negative attention to the program. To that end, Netflix limits how the actors engage with the place where controversial opinions thrive: social media. In exchange for the wealth and fame that comes with being a celebrity, Netflix requires that their actors have a muted social media presence. Of course, Umbrella Academy actors are still allowed to promote the show online and their other endeavors, but they can't get too divisive. Or at least not more controversial than what Netflix signed up for. Being public figures, Netflix realizes that whenever they sign an actor onto a project, they have to accept their personality and opinions. For instance, lead actor Ellen Page is incredibly open about her progressive politics and feminist activism. Obviously, Netflix is okay with Page expressing these kinds of opinions. But if an actor voices contentious ideas out of nowhere, it becomes an issue. After all, a performer engaging in problematic discourse or behavior reflects poorly on the program and Netflix as a company. The production structure of Netflix's season release model also makes it virtually impossible for them to quickly remove a troublesome actor from a project. So it makes sense then that Netflix would want to curtail as much of that concerning online activity as possible. Then again, nowadays social media is the easiest way for a person to express their values and advocate for causes that are important to them. Netflix limiting a performer's ability to do that is concerning at the least and morally questionable at worst. Limiting what people can do in their personal lives is already pretty shady. Limiting what they can say, though, is downright unethical and pretty overbearing of Netflix. Even if the company's looking out for their bottom line, their employees' happiness should also be a concern. It's pretty difficult to live your best life if you can't speak out about the things that are important to you, even if they are more radical. As you'd expect, Netflix wants the performers on Umbrella Academy to look their best whenever they're on camera. However, this can manifest in some pretty unusual ways, like not being able to wear their own makeup or even clothes whenever they're going to be on camera. Clearly, this makes a lot of sense for when the actors are recording scenes for episodes of Umbrella Academy. The personalities and attitudes of their characters are vastly different from the actors themselves after all. However, this rule applies when they're giving interviews and making public appearances as well. Performers have to look sharp and on brand during these promotional appearances, which means they can't express themselves through their appearance. The reasoning behind this rule can be a bit more sinister than that, though. A lot of the front-end costs for film and television production are covered by having companies pay to advertise their products in the project. While these products often appear in the shows themselves, actors can also have to promote them during their appearance outside of a show, like having to drink a specific kind of soda or brand of water during an interview. In more extreme cases, they can have to wear a specific brand of makeup or clothing while in public. That's right, Netflix is literally using their actors as human mannequins and having them advertise products without disclosing the sponsorship. That is pretty sketchy and unfair to viewers. Consumers deserve the right to know when an actor is being paid to promote a product and that it's not something that they use in their everyday life. Unfortunately, this shadier practice isn't likely to go away anytime soon. Their history of product placement in shows and celebrity advertisement is both expansive and kind of weird. Brands, celebrities, and ad campaigns have mixed together in pretty much every way imaginable since Hollywood became a cultural landmark, with a lot of those advertising techniques being much scummier than what Netflix is doing now with the Umbrella Academy actors. Like how movie theaters once spliced in frames of popcorn and soda into movies so that people would subliminally buy more snack foods. That didn't work, but it's still shady that these businesses tried to essentially hypnotize people. It really does suck that Netflix more or less uses their actors as props outside of filming. But that's the industry, and the Umbrella Academy actors are likely being well compensated for promoting a variety of brands. What do you think of all the weird rules the cast of Umbrella Academy has to follow? Please let us know in the comment section down below. And while you're there, be sure to like this video and subscribe to The Binger for more in-depth looks at the strange circumstances behind your favorite shows.